Right, good evening and welcome to episode 18, season 2 of Axiom Flux. Today's date is 6th of March 2016, and on tonight's talk is about lawful rebellion. We're joined by Stav, which is me hosting it, and PJ, and we've got a special guest, David Robinson of the Practical Lawful Dissent group. He's on here to tell us all about the process of lawful rebellion. But first of all, good evening, PJ.
Yeah, evening stuff.
All right.
Yeah, not too bad. How are you?
Yeah, Jordan. Yeah, not too bad. Struggling through, as I say. And good evening, David. Thanks for coming on.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Right,
evening, David.
Good evening.
right. Okay. Well, without further ado, we'll leave the floor mostly to you tonight, David, because there's a lot of information you want to get out there, and I don't want to, interject too much and stop you from getting on with what it's all about, lawful rebellion. And I mean, some people might just very basically, if there's somebody on here that's saying, well, what's lawful rebellion? What's the difference between that and armed rebellion or revolution? But I'm sure you'll be able to sort of go over that. And, I know
No
it's
problem.
yeah, obviously a lot of people there that it's kind of preaching to the choir to a few of them, but there may be a few out there, and obviously with the recording later on YouTube, when people look it up, they can get a better idea. So, without further ado, I put it over to you. I think you want to start with the Parliament Act 1911, etc. So, over to you, David.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm just ad-libbing, so I'm coming from memory, and I've got nothing written down in front of me here, so you just have to bear with me if I don't get it quite in order or everything. But I'm starting with the 1911 Parliament Act, because that was like the basic separation of powers that occurred in 1911 due to Asquith, the Prime Minister at the time. Now, the Parliament Act diluted the royal prerogative, which is unconstitutional, and what that means is that no longer was the reigning monarch able to withhold or grant royal assent to a parliamentary bill, creating it, bringing it into law or not, without the aid of a government minister. Well, that basically put her into, it basically destroyed the separation of powers. She was supposed to act freely on her own with regard to allowing laws into our country because of course they must comply with the British Constitution, but of course they no longer did from 1911. And you can see, a lot of troubles came to the world after 1911, like in 1914 with the First World War. Well, this has been a long, contrived plan to destroy the sovereignty of not only Britain, but it's going on all over the world actually, because David Cameron's Big Society, or the New World Order, doesn't allow any sovereignty in it. There's no national sovereignty allowed in that, because that takes us away from the global system that they want to bring in. So Edward VII was presented with the 1911 Parliament Act in 2000. Well, he was presented with the Parliament Act in 2010, and he would not give it royal assent. And it wasn't long before he passed away. And some people say in suspicious circumstances, but I don't know the evidence of that. The evidence is that the royal prerogative was dissolved from that moment on, and all acts and statutes that were created from then, some of them may be lawful, but actually they're all questionable, because many don't comply with British constitutional law, which is against British law. So where do we go from there? Well, take a big jump to 1972 and Heath's sedition and treason, when he signed us up to the European Economic Community in 1972, lying to the British electorate about there being no essential loss of national sovereignty by doing this. In fact, the evidence proves that Heath knew very well that within 30 years Britain would lose its national sovereignty, and he committed both sedition and treason at common law. All the evidence of that is on the files which were gleaned from the Public Records Office by a guy called David Barmby, and he compiled them into some discs, which are about 500 different documents which are signed or stamped or whatever, which proves that he's sedition and treason at common law, and that we do use these in our notices. Okay, so basically we've got to the point of entering the common market, and every prime minister since '72 has aided and abetted or committed direct acts of high treason themselves. We do have a list of those. If you look in the files of the Practical Lawful Dissent group page and look on the treason notices, well, I've mentioned, well, there's Cameron and Major and Blair and Thatcher's treasonous acts, including Cameron, because he's also committed treason. And we use them in our documents. It's all evidenced facts. I mean, for instance, Thatcher signed us up to the Single European Act, and which is allowing the European Union further powers over the country, which is again another act of treason. And it's been just going on unabated since 1911, basically, but since 1972 especially. Would you like to come in on that with anything?
Yeah, just of course, when heard the dissent and the Parliament Act, you said 19.
You're breaking up, actually. I can't actually hear what you're saying. You're breaking up quite badly.
Hang on a second. Perhaps we need to go down a bit. That might be better. Yeah, when you mentioned over the 7th briefly on the Parliament Act,
yeah,
you said it was 2010. I presume 1910. Yeah.
I meant 1910. I'm so sorry about that. Yeah.
That's quite okay, and it's interesting you mentioned what Edward Heath done, and basically was touted. I do remember it very well because I was a teenager and my parents voted in it, and some of my elders and brothers and sisters did. I mean, basically, it was touted as an EEC trade agreement only. It was nothing to do with Federation of Europe and the EU Federation superstates. So, and there is a lot of evidence, if people want to look that up, without going too much about it, about the stitch-up with the media, and various reporters lost their jobs and were removed from various things. So I guess there's a lot of that if people want to look that up. And basically, I think there was a group called the Bruges Group, or the Bruges Group, that released a paper about the whole sordid deal afterwards sometime. I don't think it's the modern version of the Bruges Group. It might have been something else, but I do remember seeing something online. Again, all this stuff can be found online if you do a bit of detective work. But yeah, back over to you, David. I don't want to hold you up too much. I'm sure you want to get on to the significance of Magna Carta 1215, specifically Article 61, and why it cannot be repealed, perhaps, and also when it was more recently invoked by whom and when. Back to you, David.
All right. Well, okay. Well, yeah. Most people will tell you the government's narrative, which is that Magna Carta 1215 has been repealed. I mean, and that's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous story and can easily be disproven. Now, Magna Carta 1215 is a document on its own. The government always referred to Magna Carta 1297, which was their attempt, once again, to destroy Magna Carta because it gives the people too much power. Because what basically Article 61 gives us a royal command to rebel against the Crown, and that's the Crown saying, right, if we go rogue in this contract, in future, if we go rogue, here's your remedy, and that is to do what we're doing, which is using the text of Article 61 and using it literally. You see, we're using the letter of the law, and that's what we mean when we say we're using the actual wording that's in Magna Carta 1215. it was also, Magna Carta 1215 was also not subject to Parliament because it was created before Parliament was even created. And in the Clause 63 states very clearly that it's for all time. Now, King John didn't want to sign that, and he signed it under duress. Now, he didn't sign that with a knife at his throat. He was under the duress of a criminal having to face the facts, basically. It was like the same kind of a duress as an evidenced murderer might be in the dock. So, I mean, his distress was, or his stress was, that if he didn't sign the treaty, then he would lose his position off the throne. And so that's the kind of duress he was under. Now, he was a tyrant, and the barons had had enough of him, and so people at home and abroad had had enough of him. And he carried on after 1215 to continue being tyrannical, even trying to get the Pope to, or trying to state that Pope Innocent III, I think it was, had repealed, or made null and void Magna Carta 1215, because he didn't really want to hand over all that power or take away his power and give it back to the people where it actually belongs. Some people will say that this was between the barons and the monarch and the church, actually, which it was somewhat to do with the church. But the barons were, they were acting in service to the people. I mean, things were very different back in 1215, of course, and they would have had their manors, and the people would have paid possibly local taxes to the baron or to the lord of the manor in return for protection from the knights of his realm. You see. So it was kind of a fair deal in a way, because it was quite a dodgy place, I think, in around the 13th century. So it clearly states in Magna Carta that the barons, together with the whole realm, will distress and distrain the crown, and that clearly brings it to all the people. It's not just something that involved the barons, you see. Right, so where are we now then? Well, that's 1215 dealt with. There's a lot of propaganda out there and a lot of trolls out there, trying to state that it was repealed years ago, and but the fact of it is, why did the Daily Telegraph report that it had been invoked? If it's been repealed, why did the Queen even respond to the petition of the barons in 2001? It is totally ridiculous argument if you look at the facts. And 1215 stands today. I mean, it was also stated by various people within the Quisling government at the time, including oh gosh, who was it? Who was that? Not Churchill. My mind sometimes goes a bit blank. Never mind, I can come back to that. Robin Cook? It wasn't Robin Cook. No, forget it. But it has been stated that it's still in effect today, and by the fact that we've used it successfully in our processes, and I'll get onto that a bit later. That the evidence just proves it. The fact is that anyone that acts against us will be aiding and abetting treason, because we're just standing. And the point is, we're just standing under constitutional law. Now, there is no law in the land unless it complies with the Constitution, and all the rules that they're using today are just that, rules. They're created by corporate entities, the Crown having no authority, and having no authority really, constitutionally, since 1911. It's all gone, wayward since then. So everyone that most people think the law is what the rules are today, because they've been going on for so long. But they're just rules, and they require our consent. Now, we use the fact that with our conditional acceptance notices, we use the fact that tacit consent means that they've consented to us if they don't reply to us. You see, so they do that with us. They send us notices. If you don't respond to them, then it is presumed in law that you've agreed to them. So if you just ignore the notices that you get served from the so-called government or courts or police or whatever, then you've tacitly agreed to them, and they do the same. We've served many notices on the courts on alleged judges and police, to bailiffs, and all kinds of people, and they don't reply because we're using two questions. Do you have the authority to make this demand on me since Article 61 came into effect? And are you personally standing under the invocation of Article 61? Because if you're not, I cannot aid and abet you in any way. That's the truth in law. I mean, that can be, that can be deciphered from reading the text of Magna Carta. We have the duty to compel anyone that is not willing to stand to pledge their allegiance to the barons. Now, I want to bring up a point here about the barons. Now, some people are very sceptical about pledging their allegiance to some dodgy barons, and they've got a point, really, quite honestly. I mean, most of the barons, some of the barons are deceased now. One or two seem a bit rogue, and the others have done very, very little since Article 61 came into effect on the 23rd of March 2001. And so you can see their point. But the barons are acting in service to the sovereign. Now, that's the sovereign people. Yeah, this is a national. Britain has national sovereignty. We are a nation of sovereigns. That's what creates our democracy. We're all at the top of the tree, and everyone in public service is just that, in public service to the sovereign people. Some people think that the Queen is sovereign. Well, actually, she's in a position of service to the people. The people, within a contract, the Coronation Oath Act, handed her the sovereignty of the nation to protect under royal prerogative. Of course, she hasn't done that. And so as soon as she breached that and the Coronation Oath Act, which she's breached over 3,500 times, by default, the sovereignty came straight back to the people. So, and the Queen was usurped. The barons are, like I say, in service to the people. Now, we're not going to agree to pledge our allegiance to the barons and then allow them to do unconstitutional acts. They have to act according to British constitutional law, or they'll also be committing treason, and evidently so. So they're not free to, they haven't got a free reign by us pledging our allegiance to them. We have to oversee them. They're in service to us. It's not the other way around. And that's a very important point people need to wake up to. They need to realise that they are sovereign, and we need to act as sovereign. So we don't ask the government or whoever's making demands of us. We demand answers. We demand the truth. And if they don't get it, well, then they're in dishonour. And of course, being in dishonour under the law, then you immediately lose whatever case you may have. Right. There's so many things going through my head as I'm talking to you. There's loads of things I could explain, which is about the courts, really. This is the next thing I should go to. The courts today, we don't have any courts of law in the country. They are all private corporate entities, and that's very easily understood by the fact that the Crown has no authority today since it's been usurped, since Article 61 was invoked, but also since she breached Coronation Oath Act many, many times. And some say that she was never actually really coronated correctly according to law. So, and also that George V, when he came to the throne, he was like 50th in line for it, and it all went a bit, awry. Well, it's all gone awry since the 1911 Parliament Act, quite frankly. It's just gradually, ratchet by ratchet, we've lost and are losing the laws that protect the vulnerable, protect the people, which is common law, constitutional law. And if anyone wants to dispute that, well, I challenge you to do that. Just read Bill of Rights, read the Declaration of Rights, read Magna Carta, Coronation Oath Act, and tell me where that doesn't protect the people. And which is why this shower of perverts, actually, in government are trying to destroy our constitution because they know how powerful it is. Okay, I've covered quite a lot there, and probably not in any particular order. I hope people are understanding what I'm saying here.
Yeah, well, I think you have actually. You've cleared up quite a few points that perhaps myself I was a little bit unclear about David, and it's amazing, isn't it, really? A lot of people don't understand the Constitution, the word, what it actually means, you know?
No.
They haven't a clue what the actual word Constitution means. I mean, anybody who wants to start an ORG or a dark club or anything like that, or anything where they have a committee and they have a treasurer where they want to collect 10p for tea or anything, they have to have a rule to the club or the ORG, and that then rules come under what they call a constitution. And I find
Yeah.
it most absurd. In actual fact, you know, I can't see how they've been getting away when I've seen on TV, I've seen on talk shows, when you'll get a member of parliament turn around and say, there is no constitution, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, how can you have a democracy without a constitution? It's absurd, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, how can we have a constitutional monarch if we don't have a constitution?
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realise that the system is a constitutional monarch with a parliament.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they go, well, what does that mean? Well, actually, you know, I say to everybody, there's no excuse today. The Google is your best friend. Everything out there is on the internet if you look hard enough and you look in the right places. Even governmentdocuments.org, I found, you know, things like the Declaration of Rights, you know, the English Bill of Rights, where they put it into statute, the right to petition, habeas corpus, Magna Carta 1250, all of this.
Yeah.
You know, all of it is out there. And, you know, it's, the thing is about the Constitution, it's there when it suits them. And we had a perfect example of this a few months ago when Cameron and Osborne wanted to push through further austerity measures. And the Lords basically stopped them. Now, David Cameron turns round and says it's a breach of a constitutional convention formed in 1909. I wonder what he was referring to, David. Now, you know, all of a sudden, there's a constitution there when it suits, but actually, the absurdity of that, he's referring to the actual opposition to the public bill by the Lords in 1909, is he not?
Well, I think you might have got me on that one, but I would assume so. We haven't had a constitutional convention of the people for quite some time. I mean, the last time Article 61 was used was in the Glorious Revolution, 1688,
Yeah.
and it has been used a few times, but that was the last time, like 300 years ago, until we used it in October 2014 to seize the town hall in Glastonbury.
Yes, I did see that. I did actually watch the video. Very interesting.
Well, yeah. Well, I need to give people a little bit of the grounding as to why we did that and how we made it easy for ourselves, if you don't mind. We set up a group in Glastonbury, a lawful rebellion group, where we convene once a month now, and share our experiences and co-witness each other's documents and help each other with their processes. Well, we decided the best thing that we can do is to act locally, because many of us had gone to central government and we were just being ignored. When I went after Dominic Grieve, who was the Attorney General back in 2012, and of course just completely ignored me. And you know, I ended up with a stalemate situation because I deregistered my truck and went up against the courts and the police when they did finally arrest me, and I wouldn't go to court, and I won't pay their fines, and they won't arrest me. So it became a stalemate situation. Sorry, I lost my track. What was I saying just before I said that? Can you remind me?
Yeah, it was about the seizure of the court.
Oh yeah, the seizure of the town hall.
The council, yeah.
Thanks for that reminder. I can go off on tangents sometimes. Okay, well, so what we did was we decided it was best to act locally, and so we put all the police in Wales and the local area on notice of Article 61 and demanded to know, as public servants, where they stand on it. We also did the same with the council, and we were attending their public meetings once a month, and we spent 3 months actually trying to get some idea well, just trying to get them to answer one question: whether they stand up on, on the invocation of Article 61. They all acquiesced to respond. They all, well, they just went silent and they wouldn't reply. They kept changing changing the goalposts really, going on about TTIP and which is the corporate takeover of the globe really, the transatlantic trans trade agreement, partnership agreement, TTIP, transatlantic is that investment partnership? No, it's oh gosh. Anyway, sorry.
Fascist.
Fascism for sure. And yeah, so what we did was we put them on notice and gave them time to respond. They wouldn't respond, so in protest we decided to seize the building. The councillors laughed at me when I said I was going to seize it, and so I just it made me even more determined to seize the place. So we just stayed behind and declared that we'd seized the building. Of course, the police were called, and you can see on the video how we dealt with the police. They were they'd already been prepped as to what we were doing because all the police had been on notice around here for the same amount of time, and so of course they turned around and said, "Well, you're not doing anything lawful. Enjoy your stay." And at 2 a.m. in the morning, we decided to give it back to the kindly janitor who'd been missing his supper because of us. He was very kind, actually, very good janitor, Les, very nice guy. But we decided we didn't want to create too much of a disturbance for him, nor to local public services, because we know how they are propagating what we're doing. And the Gazette, in fact, local Gazette did a terrible story about what we've done, total spin story about us seizing the town or making us out to be something that we were not. And you know how it goes, propaganda. But the truth is, we seized it successfully. None of us were arrested, and that was, we thought, well, there you are. There's proof that Article 61 actually is effective, because we didn't do it for any other reason. We seized it under Article 61, and that's what we stick to. Article 61 every time with all of our processes. It's the most powerful weapon we can use because it's evidential and it can't be denied, and it isn't denied by those in Westminster or anywhere else. Because whoever denies it, of course, will be compounding treason. And by denying it, they'll be doing so, providing us the evidence of their high treason. And they don't know how this rebellion is going to go. And, high treason still carries the death penalty in Britain today, despite what the government website will tell you, which is the 1795 Treasonous and Seditious Practices Act has been repealed. Well, it hasn't been repealed, and they know damn well it hasn't. Blair attempted to repeal that act in 1998 when he brought in the Crime and Disorder Act. In Section 36 of that act, he repealed the 1795 Treason Act and the death penalty that went with it, purely because he'd committed like 3 counts of treason himself, to try to cover his own arse. And because he had committed treason himself and other crimes, war crimes and terrorism as well, I should say allegedly, but the evidence is fairly clear over that. He had no authority whatsoever to do any damn thing. So obviously 1795 Treason Act has not been repealed, and the death penalty for high treason still stands to this day. So that is the leverage we're using. We're saying, look, you're going to commit high treason here and provide us evidence of it, because we will bring you to trial on this. Maybe not at the moment, but people are waking up. And we will be demanding public to be in court du jour for any matter to be heard. And this is what we do in lawful rebellion. We don't agree to their cause. We don't consent to their private corporate hearings. We rebut them by using conditional acceptance notices. We're saying, yeah, we'll come to your summons as long as it's not a criminal offence to do it. And provide me the evidence. Provide me the evidence that Article 61 is no longer in effect today, and also that the Nice Treaty has been repealed, because, of course, Article 61 was brought into effect because of the Nice Treaty, which is a treasonous treaty, signed in 2001. And this is what the barons petitioned the Office of Sovereign on. And of course, the criminal alleged queen ratified the treaty, and so they invoked Article 61. And because of this treasonous treaty, and the others, I mean, they're all treasonous. I mean, Maastricht put the queen into a state of suzerainty, which means she was no longer the head of the country, head of the judiciary, the country, and became a citizen of Europe by that treaty. So that was again a document of high treason. Now, what we've got today, we seized the town hall because we did it in October, because on the 1st of November on 2014, another 43 areas of public control were handed over again to the European Union. They've been doing this in a ratchet affair so that people don't wake up and realise if they did it all in one go, people might wake up, but because they do it ratchet by ratchet, we've been covertly occupied by the European Union. We're now under full occupation. People don't realise this. Even the police are now being directed by Europol, and the Quislings in Westminster are just rubber stamping European directives and not law. I mean, they're not making this up themselves. They're just rubber stamping European directives. And the Lisbon Treaty, which was signed by Brown in 2008, is another massively treasonous document because it is actually the European Constitution, and it has certain dodgy things in it. I mean, the basic one is that you are guilty till proven innocent under the Lisbon Treaty, under the EU Constitution. And under the common law, you are innocent until proven guilty, and that is a massive difference. Under common law, you have the right of habeas corpus. You have to be brought to a hearing to see if there's any evidence for you to be detained. That isn't the case with the Lisbon Treaty. You can be imprisoned and actually extradited to anywhere in the EU for up to 9 months without so much as a phone call. There's no democracy in this, and people need to wake up, need to realise that, well, millions of people died our forefathers died protecting our sovereignty in two contrived world wars. I mean, they didn't realise it was contrived. They were trying to save us from, from the fascist.
Have we lost you, David?
I believe we've lost the mic on David.
Is he back yet? He hasn't muted up by accident, has he?
No, it's a common known problem with Google Hangouts. It's happened to a few people where it just cuts off the audio, and the only way they can get it reactivated is by rejoining.
Oh, right. I don't know if you can send him. Well, he won't see the text. By the way, if there's anybody watching and they want to, until we get David back, if you want to text in some questions, if you click on the top left and sign, blue sign with the three little arrows on it, lines on it, if you click that, the chat box will appear on the right hand side, and you can always pop something in there, which I shall put hi to give you an example. There we are. Pop a question in there, and when we get David back, hopefully we can put the question to him. So
yeah, and if you're listening to this on website, just scroll to the bottom. You can leave a message on there as well. So
okay,
try and get David back now.
Is he back? No, he's going to have to sign back in. He probably could hear us, hopefully, and he's going to.
Yeah, he would have been able to hear us. It's just a case of him rejoining. Should have him back on.
Okay.
Hopefully.
While we wait for him to come back, is there anything you wanted to go over what he said that perhaps he needs to clarify a little bit better? Well, perhaps for layman terms, PJ, or?
I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and we were talking about Magna Carta 1215 and also 1217. I think David mentioned 1297. Maybe wrong, but we were talking about the 1217 and the 1215 and the difference of it. Now, the person I was talking to was sort of like indicating as if the 1217 was done without the duress side, as David explained, in 1215. But Eventually it started to get a little bit confusing where none of it seemed to make sense. So it was interesting to hear what David was saying when he touched on 1215. I would have liked to have asked him more on that. Hopefully we can get him back on.
Well, I think in one of the clauses, and I think David touched on it, which was clause 63, meaning that it can't be changed. It is what it is, basically. I might have that wrong, but that's what what I gather from the articles that I'd read in Magna Carta 1215. There would be no reason to change any of it, and certainly the 1297 that he refers to, that was that's when they had the first statutes being passed by Parliament, if you like. But as David said, if you can't repeal anything that wasn't originally put down by Parliament. So, I mean, it's
Who knows? It was pre-Parliament, yeah.
Absolutely, it's a charter. It cannot be repealed, and they can't be if they wasn't party to bringing it in the first place. So you can't repeal something that.
Well, it was like we was talking last week, I think it were, when you mentioned Charter of the Forest.
Yes, Charter of Forest, which has only just been repealed recently, I think in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, that was another one.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have mentioned to David that, last week we touched on Brexit. And for those people who might consider voting to try and get out, I'd have liked David's opinion on surroundings are making that decision. And if you're standing in we've got him back.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, welcome back.
I don't know how long I went for, but we lost connection, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no problem. We've just been talking while you was gone. Me and Stav have been discussing. We have a few questions. Well, I do in particular. The difference between 1215 and 1217. Even though you pretty much explained it, I think, when you was discussing about the duress side with King John.
Yeah.
That would be the only difference between the 17 and the 15. Am I right?
I'm not quite sure what was the question. What was this?
I had a discussion of the day with somebody who was indicating that the 1217, more people like to stick with that because they feel like there's no duress side to it.
Oh, that's.
Oh, he's gone again.
Have you gone again?
They need to use a bit of common sense, really. Do we celebrate? Do you think we'll be celebrating in 1217 the 1217 version? We should have celebrated the 1215 version.
Which one was signed at Runnymede, David?
Yeah, that was the 1215, and
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying. In 1216, they tried to amend it. They already started to try and destroy it from then on, because King John realised he'd made a big error.
Yeah.
And he gave the people absolute remedy, and it took away the divine right of kings, you see, so they were no longer able to rule without being under the law themselves. So, and tyrants don't like that, of course. Now,
wasn't the clause 63 a check against that anyway, as you said?
Yeah, that's a codicil. It says it was this is for all time, and evidently it is, because it still stands today, because we're using it successfully. And I'll have to go into that further later. And so the evidence is very clear. It does stand. It can't be denied, unless someone wants to commit sedition or treason to deny it. So far, they don't want to. These so-called authorities.
Last week, David, we discussed Brexit and the EU side of things, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Now, if somebody who was not standing in lawful rebellion as of yet, but are aware that treason may or has been committed, then what would your advice be to somebody in that position? Would you recommend them to vote out of EU or to not vote at all?
You can't vote. It's because what you're doing is you're giving consent to a criminal regime.
You're acknowledging it.
You're acknowledging, you're giving consent. In any case, if they're that sleepish to vote, then they don't really realise how rigged the elections are, and they have been rigged, for years, for decades now. It's like just to go back to the Irish vote, where they voted no to the euro, and they got told to vote again. This is how they are. They don't.
Well, morally, I thought that the same as what you just said. You've just confirmed it. Andy Stav, he's on the same as that as well. He isn't going to be voting because he doesn't believe we're in it unless it's through treason.
No.
So then people are going to ask probably after that. Well, if you don't vote, is your vote still going to get counted?
Doesn't. No. All your vote is a guide to the government of how many people are still asleep. The only way, there's only one possible remedy to get away from institutionalized treason, and that is for the country to rise up in rebellion. That's the only way out of it. You're never going to vote your way out. People need to think a process through. So we vote, and by some miraculous, by some miracle, we vote out. Well, the quislings in government who took us in and are aiding and abetting this treason are still going to be there. You're not going to have the rule of law back. We're not going to have courts of law where we can get justice against these bloody criminals. It's completely. It's like it's doublethink, and the government use that against the people all the time. Yeah. You cannot vote within a treasonous regime. It just doesn't work.
Speaking of votes, when they did the Syria vote to bomb Syria, last year.
Yeah.
Well, we did a talk on that, and me and Stav and a few others discussed on the EU side of that, and we put across basically that the vote's already been decided before it's even been decided officially. It's similar with this EU. I feel that they're just going to say, we're in it whether you like it or not, regardless of how many people have said yes or no. We're not going to get out of it.
No. Well, they're not going to rig the vote to no anyway. They don't want out of it, no matter what they might tell us. And also, people have to realise what the government are doing at the moment. I mean, they are hitting us with all kinds of stuff. Austerity. They're being totally fascist. They're being very blatantly corrupt and blatantly. They're blasé with it. And the reason for this is they want people to go, the EU's better than what we've got. Let's go to the EU. Let's go to the European Court of Human Rights to get remedy against our own politicians. Well, they want you to do that because then you're giving away your sovereignty. You're putting your faith and trust into a foreign authority, which obviously has no authority over this land unless we consent to it. So it's all a big game, and people don't realise what a massive conspiracy this is. People really need to wake up to understand that if we don't reject the regime and rebel and do things peacefully, then we're really going to suffer. And not only that, our children are going to suffer. So.
Well, I think on voting, there was a quote by a dictator called Joseph Stalin. It went something like, the people who cast the votes don't decide an election. The people who count the votes do. So, I mean, I think you have to take them sort of quotes on board. And it really does. Well, I think once you get to over half a century and a bit more like I have, and you've seen this voting machine and, should we say, parliamentary process and election rigmarole, and you see it come in and you see it go out, you see these people come, the puppets come, and you see the puppets go. Yeah. It's pretty obvious what's going on.
I've never voted, Stav, never.
Well, I don't blame you because, I mean, you've obviously seen early on in your life that it's a whole complete sham and scam, and what it is, basically.
Well, to start with, it didn't feel right. It's not a case of seeing it. To begin, it didn't feel right.
And anyway, as David has pointed out with his excellent research and what he does with Magna Carta, and this is all unlawful. And now people have to realise that, I mean, there are people, David, that go, well, they don't know the legal system and the lawful system. They don't know the rule of law, the constitutional rule of law. They don't understand what that means and what law means. They tend to want to bundle it up into this legal business of definition, which, as you and I know, can mean completely two different things altogether. So there is that to think about, and it's kind of difficult at times to get over to the people that have not looked into this, what exactly we're saying, because to them they're saying, well, you're saying legal on one hand and lawful on the other, and aren't they the same? And it was a bit of a brain soak for me, and it took a long time for it to sink in,
Yeah, well, I'd like to just clarify that very, very simply, if you allow me to. For something to be legal, it has to comply with British constitutional law. Therefore, it is lawful. So that's the difference. The legal system is all under the Crown. The legal system, like the legal fiction, the copyright of the Crown. Now, as soon as we enter into lawful rebellion, we rebut all presumed allegiance to the Crown. Therefore, we rebut all presumptions of acting as the legal fiction, or understanding legalese, or acting to consent to any of the legal system at this time. So, I mean, it's very simple, really. If it isn't lawful, if it doesn't stand under British constitutional law, then it isn't legal. And all the rules that they're using today, although it's called the legal system, is that totally unlawful. It's totally illegal. Yeah.
Yeah, well, definitely, I agree with you. And there is the the confusion with quite a lot. I mean, there's been a lot spoken since, let's just say, freedom of the land and freedom movement from all around the different parts of the globe that have drawn up their own conclusions to what law and legal system is and how it goes about doing it, whatever. And at the end of the day, if they want the consent of the people, they better damn well make sure it's lawful.
Yeah, yeah. This is what we're trying to do. The great thing about the lawful rebellion process that we're using is we're educating people with the process. You see, we're not only educating the people that were making demands on us, we're also creating a case file for our defence, and also as evidence against them if they carry on acting unlawfully towards us. So we're doing it honourably. Honour is very important in law. As soon as you're in dishonour, then you've lost. You're not going to win if you bring it to the trial. So honour is very important. And this is why we use the 3-notice process, which is conditional acceptance. So I conditionally accept on proof of your claim that you have authority. And when they don't reply, or they reply but with lack of substance, with lack of evidence rebutting our claims, which is Article 61, they are in dishonour. So we send them a notice of opportunity to cure, a notice of default, an opportunity to cure. This is the honourable way to go about it. So we're giving you another chance to respond to the first notice that I've served you. And in the first notice, we just provide a copy of our oath of allegiance, Article 61 text, the Daily Telegraph report, and the letters between Sir Robin Janvrin, the alleged Queen's private secretary at the time, and the Barons Committee in 2001. All that just provides clear and concise evidence of our standing. And I'll just mention about the oath of allegiance again. What we did on the group page was we asked people to send them to a baron, one of the barons that invoked Article 61, a quorum of 25. Some of them have passed away, some of them are not, didn't receive them, or we're sending them back. Rutland seems to be a bit of a dodgy one, to be frank. Craig Marr seems to be one of the better ones, and we're focusing a little bit more on him. But there are a few good barons, but I forgot my point there. What was I saying?
Oath of allegiance.
Yeah, the oath of allegiance doesn't have to go to a baron. You just have to create one and get 3 of your friends, anyone really, to witness that you've you've got it, then you've got it in your possession with 3 co-witnesses' signatures to say that they've witnessed you, making this oath, and then you've got a document which you can then provide a photocopy of to anyone that's making demands on you with the other evidence that I've just mentioned in your rebuttal. And like I said, the rebuttal is just a question, just questions. What we're basically saying is, if it's lawful, I'll pay it. But if it's not, then you need to go away, because actually you're trying to coerce me to aid and abet treason and other crimes, and also breach my oath of allegiance, which would be unconstitutional. So we whoever's making the demands on us, we make them personally liable if they don't back off. Now, what in our experience, what we find is police back off, the courts back off, but agents like the water board, the utilities companies, who have, in one process we've been using with Danielle, what they've done, what the water board did was they went to the court to get them to send her a summons. Well, she got sent 2 summonses, which she totally ignored at the time, which is something I don't actually advise we do, but she did this anyway. And so an alleged district judge, ordered her to go to prison for 7 days for contempt. So, we got on the case, and we drafted some notices up, conditionally accepted it, ended up rebutting the 7-day prison sentence, and she had 24 hours to to present herself or get arrested, and this was like 10 months ago. And now the water board couldn't get remedy through the courts because the courts back off. I put the judge himself on notice, and they backed away. And so what they did was they created a liability order in her absence, and so we rebutted the liability order. We've got no authority, and so they sent it off to the debt collectors. So we got after the debt collectors, and we put all them on notice, and they kept making threats and threats and threats, but they never enforced them. They never came round. We were waiting for them with cameras and stuff to get evidence of their collusion in this plot. And of course, they never turned up. And so they tried again with another summons a bit later on, all over the water bill. And again, we rebutted it. And again, the agents went away. And then we had another district judge come after her, a Judge Bromilo from Yeovil County Court. And he sent a process server onto her. And the process server served her a notice saying he'd be round on, I think it was the 16th of November last year. He was going to turn up between 9 and 10 a.m. in the morning to serve her with the order. Well, we gathered there, a few of us, with the cameras, and we served notice on him 3 days prior, and he never showed. Again, he never showed. So and they backed off again. So she's never paid water. The water board haven't backed off, even though they're all under notice of the treason they're aiding and abetting. What they've done now is they've gone to the Northampton Business Centre, the so-called County Court Business Centre, and now they've tried to serve her with another summons, which we've just rebutting again. And so there's no remedy for them, but they won't stop trying. Whereas the courts, or the so-called courts, we usually go after the legal advisors or the manager or whatever alleged judge is creating the order, and they always back off because if they don't, then they're going to be committing high treason at common law, and we will have the evidence of them doing so. So that's why we get a remedy. Really, no one wants to commit high treason.
Well, this remedy can be used in everything from bailiffs to water to utilities, all of these things. I'm not saying people should use it disrespectful. Understand what lawful rebellion is, why you're doing it. Obviously,
yeah.
Don't do it to because understand it first. And I think that's what people need to do with it, David.
Well, people need to have the right. I think people need to have the right intention, and the intention being not to be aiding and abetting perverts and war criminals and quislings in government. I mean, this is what these people are doing here. We're very honourable, peaceful people, and we don't want to aid and abet paedophiles, cover-us up, you know, or war criminals, terrorists, which is what we are doing. And you know, all support our own demise or our children's future's demise. So it's a moral stance for most of us here. It's about, you know, standing away and saying no more. I'm not doing it anymore. And if you're going to make me, well, you're going to be personally liable for any crimes that you commit. And so it's not about saving a few quid. We don't really give a toss about the money. What we want the rule of law back. We want proper courts of law where I can get Tony Blair in the dock as a hostile witness, and I will cross-examine him, and I will have him. Well, he should be in the Tower, along with many others.
Well, some people say that he should be in the Hague for war crimes, sir.
Well, he should also, yeah, but he's never going to get past the first hurdle, which is the treason in his own country. I mean, that, you know, he'll be hung from Wormwood Scrubs for that.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not up for capital punishment necessarily, but this man has done so much, you know, to our country and to children and family and innocent people of other countries. You know, he was involved in the London bombings, and so he put, you know, he was involved in blowing up his own, you know, people who he's supposed to be in service to. And you know, I mean, you've only got to look at what Maud did put out on his 7/7 Ripple Effect film. I mean,
yes,
the facts are, you know, basically indisputable. I mean, you have to put, you know, you have to use Occam's razor a little bit, you know, and and use a bit of common sense when it comes to that, because you know, there is clear evidence, but you have to just, you know, look at the facts of what happened. You know, why was John de Menzies murdered? You know, he was you know, and why did they say straight away that there'd been a surge in the underground, an electrical surge? You know, make the connection. John de Menzies was an electrician. He probably created the surge, and I don't want to get too much into the London bombings. Let's keep with Article 61. But what I'm saying is, you know, we're dealing with some very dangerous people that need to be away from sharp objects ASAP, and we have found the remedy that will do it. At the moment, it's on an individual level. We're having individual success, but we're not getting anywhere because we need people. We need other people to stand by us and to stand by themselves and act as sovereign people themselves and to protect the realm themselves. I mean, it's not about waiting for other people to do it. Article 61 makes it compulsory for us all to compel each other who are unwilling to stand. And the reason for that is obviously because the only remedy against institutionalized treason is for mass uprising in a peaceful manner. One of the things that we do in lawful rebellion, what we advocate, is to lobby the bobby. This is how we put it, lobby the bobby, because it gives the right kind of idea of what we want to do here. It's about, you know, we'd say compel the police, but we actually want to, you know, get to the heart a bit. You know, come on, guys, you know, we've got kids as well. Do you realise what you're doing? We educate them as to the facts. Now, I want to just state at this point that I've been doing this for some years now, and I've met cops, ex-magistrates, High Court judges even, who actually are grateful for what we're doing because they feel trapped within the system. They can't raise their objections because they've got mortgages, they're trapped within the system, and they know what's going to happen. They'll lose their jobs. But they actually support what we're doing. So, I mean, they can see that there's a lot of bad, you know, wrong going on in government at the moment, but they feel a bit powerless. And they will do until enough of us actually get up and start lobbying the police more. You know, we can write to them, we can put them on notice, we can go down the police station. We can try to report the crimes of treason, which have actually been reported about 70 times now. If you can, if you look at what Albert Burgess was doing, and some of what he's doing is quite good, but he doesn't support what we're doing. He calls us freemen on the land, and we're not freemen on the land. This has nothing to do with the freemen on the land movement. All we're doing is constitutional law, whereas the free man, they use their criminal rules and go to their not courts of law to try and get remedy. And what they're doing is giving credibility to those rules that they're using against them and those courts that aren't courts of law. So they're never going to find remedy in those by doing it that way. And what we're finding is a stalemate at the moment, but when enough people actually do this, people within the system, and I call them the silent majority, there's a lot of them, actually disagree with what's going on, will actually be enthused by the weight of the people and actually come on board. And I'm talking about you know, cops and magistrates and judges and people in public servants, you know, all kinds of people, really. I mean, basically, you know, people are generally decent, you know, kind, you know, got hearts. Not so many of them are sociopaths or psychopaths. But there does seem to be a lot of them around today. Secondary psychopaths, actually. They've you know, been creating these kind of organic robots through NLP and other ways. You know, common purpose have been involved in.
Yeah, I must admit, David, I haven't talked to many. I've talked to a few, and I found them quite receptive to when you start talking to them about common law, the police constable, his role. I often take them back to when I was a young boy and a teenager, and how the police constable carried out his duties under his oath of office that he took to be a police constable. Yeah. And I found them quite receptive. Some of the younger ones, basically, at first don't understand what I'm talking about, but they do understand that they take this oath, but it's done on a mass type. I don't know, Albert Burgess went to training of police recruits. I think it was quite recently, the last time I spoke to him, I think last year, and he was totally disgusted with the training, how they train them today compared to when he was a police constable. And I found them actually quite receptive to what I was talking about, very interested about, you know, should we say, victimless crimes, and how I discussed and how I put over about how people should be more responsible for themselves, and you know, a lot of this nonsense would be stopped. But yeah. You know, I found them overall quite hospitable. There's one or two enforcement officers that think you're having a laugh and joke, and they kind of are not quite receptive to what you're saying. But you know, quite a few of them are. So I agree with your sentiments, what you were saying about there must be a lot of disgruntled people in the system that I was fed up with the system, with the corruption, you know, that corruption that's going on across the board, and basically I feel pretty much the same like we do about it all. Now, David, before we finish off in a while, there was something about an important case that you're following up at the moment, one of your group members.
Right, yeah, well, we've taken on a case by which is Anne Richardson. You can see on the group page what it's all about, Practical Law Dissent group page. She's been the subject of institutionalized collusion, corruption by a group of solicitors, a so-called district judge, some police, and bailiffs and stuff. Okay, so she has basically, they've basically stolen everything she's got and her family's got. All through, started off as a boundary dispute. It's quite, I won't go into it in any great detail. I'm hoping maybe we can get another chance to come on air and give you a bit more about this after we've done a few more actions towards Anne Richardson. But it is the most disgusting case of corruption, you know, that I've heard for a very long time, involving two of her family members dying, and quite, you know, a lot of it is quite connected to what's actually occurred. You know, it's disgraceful. Now, they've just made a ruling in another private corporate hearing that she's lost her case, and you know, her so-called solicitor wants another £10,000 off her, and she's going to lose all the monies that they've retained to the selling of one of her properties. And you know, so we're going after these, all of them. They're all on notice. They've all been served recently with notices of misprision of treason. We're going after the district judge, and we're going after the North Wales Police Constabulary on this. We're also going after MPs and possibly high up in government, and we need people to back this, because what we want with this matter is a properly convened court de jure. We want a proper court of law that stands under British constitutional law only, common law, and so that all the best truths are heard and a jury deliberates on the facts only. And we want remedy. So we're asking for people to actually get on board with this and support it, support Anne, support us, what we're doing. We can't do this without the support of the people. This is what Lawful Rebellion's about. We can't just do it on our own. You know, we're not going to get very far if we do that. I haven't been through any of the other cases that we've done much, really. I don't know how much time we've got left.
Well, irrelevant. Time is irrelevant, they say. Whenever, carry on for as long as you like, David, and when you want to wrap it up, just let us know. Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, you know, I haven't mentioned how we've dealt with the HMRC, or how we've dealt with the Danielle's rebellious hemp charges, but we've dealt with them in the same manner, and we've had the same results. HMRC, in fact, one of our group members pioneered a remedy against HMRC, who he'd been fined for not filing in tax returns. Eddie, one of our group members, pioneered this, and so he went after them with Article 61, just sent them a conditional acceptance notice. And after a period of time, they wrote back to him, basically saying that his appeal had been successful. He made no appeal. He only asked some simple questions, but they said that they'd be withdrawing the fines, and that gave rise to Sandy, another one of our group members, to do the same process, and because she'd also paid under duress like 1,700 quid's worth of fines in the past, because she hadn't filed her tax reforms returns since 2012. And so she'd paid 1,700, and they had another £1,200 plus fine that they were trying to get off her. So she did the same process, and we sent the 3 notices, the default notice, and they sent one of their agents after her with quite a scary letter. So it's all online. You can look at the whole process. We've put it up there. So we went after him with a pretty strong letter, and then they completely backtracked and said, "Oh, sorry about all this, all the problems we've had, we've given you, and we're going to give you your £1,700 back, and we've reduced the fines to 0. So have a nice day." So that was quite a nice success for her.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it just proves, because HMRC are directly linked to the Crown, and we only asked the same question. The 2 questions: do you have authority since Article 61 was invoked, and are you personally standing under it? And that was it. And of course, they didn't admit to it. They turned around and said, oh, yeah, because your circumstances haven't changed. Oh, we decided that you didn't have to pay the fines, and we're going to reduce the fine to 0. Well, they didn't know whether the circumstances had changed or not. It was just they just made it up. But they certainly were going to write back and say, "Oh, yes, you're right. Article 61's invoked. We're all committing treason. Here's your money back." I mean, that's obvious. They're not going to do that. And the other case, which was the hemp plants that Daniela rebelliously grew, even though she's pioneering about 4 other processes, she decided to stand by the hemp, because she very strongly believes that hemp would be a massive benefit to the planet and to the people on it. We're not talking about cannabis here, we're talking about hemp. However, she's a big advocate for the medical advantages, as well as other people within the group, of cannabis oil for cancer and some other ailments. And so she grew 32 plants in her garden, and somebody allegedly grassed her up, and the police came round to remove her vegetable matter. Well, our pioneering rebel Eddie got around there with a video camera, and recorded it all. And videoed all their corruption. So what the police decided to do was to give her a chance of caution, because we rebutted their charges, and so they decided to give her a caution. And so when the police came to the door and I was there with her, we refused the caution unless we can sign it under duress. We just thought we'd get rid of it, get out of the way, but we'll sign it under duress if you want, because that makes her not liable for the caution even. Of course, the police wouldn't accept that, which we knew. And so they said, all right, well, we'll see you in court then. So the next thing was she got a summons. And we just did the same process, rebutted the summons, got a letter from Crown Prosecution Service, and all the imposters in there, saying that no further, they wouldn't be taking the case any further because of lack of evidence. Well, you know, they purported that the hemp that she was growing was actually cannabis after they did testing on it. So they just completely backtracked and pretended that they didn't have any evidence, but they didn't have any real evidence, because what she was growing was hemp, and purely hemp, which she bought from the hemp shop in Glastonbury, because Danielle does juices and she likes the to eat hemp in a salad and stuff. She's a bit of a raw and healthy eater, raw foodist and healthy eater. And so what we're doing now is we're going after the police with a claim, because they stole a vegetable matter. And if they're going to call it cannabis, well, we're also going after them for quite a lot of money, because cannabis is worth quite a lot of money on the street. Now, if it was hemp, we will estimate about 50 quid a plant. But I mean, if they're cannabis, and there's no law against growing, selling, smoking, using cannabis whatsoever. So she could have sold that. I mean, the buds go for like 10 quid a gram on the streets. So we're estimating about 500 quid a plant. And otherwise, we want a written rebuttal that she was growing cannabis at all, and we'll go after the lesser amount. But we're going to be disobedient, you know, and we're going to use this to her benefit by stating the facts that she was actually growing hemp, but the police called it cannabis. So we're going to go after a claim for that.
Well, I'm an advocate like Daniel and people of that, because I think the plant medicinal has a lot to offer for people.
Absolutely.
I think it's a crime against humanity that it's suppressed.
Yeah.
I applaud her for that. And this whole nonsense about growing your own plants and it's a crime and all this, it is total nonsense. You're quite right. And I think it's
yeah.
For that, I'm right behind it for that.
You know what people don't.
Hello, carry on.
You're breaking up. Am I breaking up with you?
No, you're okay, David. Carry on.
All right. Yeah. Well, most people don't understand the law fully. I mean, they need to realise that there has to be three elements for a crime to be committed. First, there needs to be a mens rea, which is criminal intent. There also needs to be an actus reus, which is like the body of the crime. So in a murder case, it would be the literal body. And there also needs to be a corpus delicti, which is the most important thing. There needs to be someone that's suffered a loss or harm by another's actions. Now, it's not just suffice for one of those elements to be with evidence in a crime for a crime to be committed, but all three elements must be there for a crime to have been committed. And so people have to realise that most of the laws, most of the crimes that they supposedly commit today aren't crimes. They're all like victimless. Well, they're not crimes. I was going to say victimless crimes, but they're not crimes. If there's no victim, if there's no corpus delicti, no one who suffered a loss, then there is no crime. And this is why, the growing, selling, smoking, whatever you want to do with cannabis, there is no crime to be had unless you agree to their rules. And of course, we don't. And we all have a lawful excuse not to, since Article 61 was invoked. It seems crazy that we have quite a lot of opposition about what we're doing, because what we're actually doing is we're standing up successfully against perverts and pedophiles and war criminals and stuff, and we're protecting the rule of law and the law that protects the people by doing this. We still have quite a lot of people that seem to be standing against us on this, which is completely, it's collective insanity in my view. So we need to really get, people need to understand that a lot of what they think is law, their laws, are not laws at all. We need to start standing in our power, our sovereign power again, deciding what is a law, what is actually a rule. And it's very basic. The common law is such a common sense, simple, instrument. I mean, if we cause no loss or no harm, or we don't breach the peace, and we are honest in our agreements, then that is it. That's common law. That's what the spirit of common law, the Constitution, is all about. If you don't do any of those four things, then there's no reason for anyone to come after you for anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was lucky to be taught from an early age that my father would always run his own kind of small businesses. He was just a one-man brigade, but he did say to me from a very early age, if you decide to sort of follow in my footsteps, if you like, and do what I done, it's entirely up to you. Always make sure that anything you do, you write it down in a proper lawful contract. And he showed me how that was done.
Yeah. And
he said, you don't do anything outside of that. That is how you should operate, and make sure
that's right. That's good advice. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was kind of fortunate, David, to have from a very early age. And there is only, in my book, one civil law, and that's contract law. I don't see anything else.
Well, yeah. Well, you're basically right there. I mean, yeah, it's all contract. It's all contract, really, isn't it? It's either verbal, or tacit, or a written contract with terms and agreements and equal consideration and everything else that makes a contract completely lawful. An agreement by the parties. Breach that agreement. Yep. You put your hands up. Yeah, I'm liable. I breached it. If you don't, then that's fine. You have a proper agreement which works out fine for everybody, and everyone's happy. I mean, it's all about honour, about truth, about being honourable these days. And this is what the world lacks: is honour. We had an honourable society. Truth would be being presented in schools and in the universities, where constitutional law hasn't been is not taught anymore. It hasn't been taught since the 1970s in this country. This is all part of the Quisling's plan to gradually change it all around so no one notices. Suddenly we're all running around thinking that these rules are laws and we've got to abide by them. And it's people like us that are having to go, well, look, actually, that's all rubbish, and we're going to show you how to do it, and then we're going to show you why that's rubbish and how we can actually stand up against this and do it peacefully and totally lawfully. We're really hoping that people will get the courage. Really, it's all about fear, about the losing fear. And what we find is that when you do the lawful rebellion process and it becomes successful to you, there's a shift in consciousness. There's a shift in what's going on in your head, and it gives you the courage to actually, to carry on and do more, because as long as you do the process correctly, there is nothing anyone actually can do against you without committing very, very serious crimes indeed. And as long as we stand together and we unite and we protect each other, because then any injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and we all need to be aware that injustice is coming down for every single one of us. So we're all going to be in that position. And it's like that, was it Reverend Nollheimer, I think it was, in Nazi Germany, who said, first the Nazis, they came for the trade unionists, but I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't stand up for them. And then the Nazis, they came for the gypsies, and I wasn't a gypsy, so I didn't stand up for them. And when the Nazis came for him, there was no one else around to stand up for him. So this is, we need to actually pull together, realize that our forefathers died Many of them died, and mothers, foremothers, worked very hard in the last 2 world wars to protect our national sovereignty. Now, all we have to do is put pen to paper. What they had to do is stand in bloody muddy ditches, firing at other people and getting shot at and blown to bits. So we've actually got it quite easy in this war, and people need to understand that this is a war. This is a war for our minds. This is a war for our sovereignty, and that's what's going on all over the globe at the moment. This is why they're attacking these sovereign nations. Libya, Iraq, Syria. They're all sovereign nations. No sovereignty is going to exist in this so-called new world order because it can't. There's no place for it. And so this is what's going on. It's not such a war on terrorism. It's a war on sovereignty. And because we're a sovereign nation, they're trying to destroy all our sovereignty.
Well, I agree with you totally, and I think my parents who fought in that war lost a lot of friends and family, and they, a lot of them paid the ultimate price, sacrifice. But my father, my mother and father died. They've been gone a long time, but just before my father passed away, was at the time he said it. He didn't say his heart was broken, but in so many words it was. And that was when they were just finishing the Channel Tunnel, when they were just, the two drills met each other, or the French. My father said, "What the bloody hell was that all about?" In the war. So he kind of he passed away shortly after that. It wasn't the reason, he had other things, but and because of that, and what my father and my mother taught me about morals, decency, and also, what it was about sovereignty. And I feel that I have the duty, out of respect, to carry on and follow up on what I've been doing, and also the work that you've been doing with your group, David. The importance of it and everything, and I feel I have a duty to do that, and I'm not going to waver from that because of all of that. So that's my personal situation. But yeah, I agree. The remedy is there. The processes may seem daunting at first, but before we close, is there any information you want to give, the websites or?
We've got our website, which is lawfulrebellion.info. Now, there's downloadable documents on there. There's a lot of information on there. The Practical Lawful Dissent website, Facebook group page, where we've got nearly 10,000 members now, and we don't have trolls. We don't have trouble on our group. All the people that are left are genuinely honourable people that we know of, and so we've got a pretty good group there. I just want people to realise that actually what we're doing is very simple. It's not a difficult concept. You just got to understand, it's a kind of shift in consciousness, really. We understand that we're sovereign, they're all in service to us, they're all imposters, and they're trying to destroy the laws that protect us. And we have the remedy, we're using the remedy, and it's just too easy to use. It's so simple, even a child could use it. So don't get, people don't need to get tied up with the free man stuff. A lot of damage to the Lawful Rebellion movement. We have to deal with a lot of freemen, and they're the worst ones because they've invested a lot of time in learning all the legal language, you see, and so they don't want to let that go. And we don't use any of it. We just use constitutional law, and then anyone that comes up against us is breaching constitutional law. It's that simple. And I hope people can see it for its simplicity and not see it as a difficult thing to understand. It's really not.
Okay, well, it's great of you to come on, and I've really enjoyed the talk. So we seem to have lost PJ a little while ago. I think he did say early on to me that he was having internet problems, so it looks like he's off now for the evening. But thanks very much for coming on, David, and of course, get in touch with me or PJ. I'm on your practical
right
dissent page. I'll be in touch, and I think you're a friend on Facebook as well. No, in actual fact, I know you are. I get in touch with me or PJ as regards any information or perhaps you want to come on again and discuss that special case, because I know that's quite important. We're following up, and perhaps we can do something.
Yeah.
Or we can do another show.
I quite like people to, people must still have questions. I'd quite like people to hit me with some questions, because there's not much I can't answer really when it comes to lawful rebellion. It sounds a bit big-headed. It's just I've been doing it for so long. I can help people with their difficulties if they have any. So.
Yeah, well, I have actually referred to your Facebook group a few times on other different Facebook pages about bailiff problems, and well, why don't you just go into lawful rebellion and hit them with conditional acceptance notices? And I've left links and stuff, so who knows? Maybe one or two people will come in and join up, and it's like you say, it's once you get the grasp of it, which is fairly simple if you read the files which is in your on your page.
Yeah.
It's quite simple process, and it's not complicated, like you say. You're not asking people to go into their unlawful courts and learn legalese and argue the tuss with them, and that's a silly way to go about it, because it's only going to end one way.
Well, yeah, and also protesting on the streets is dangerous because they want civil unrest, and also petitions are another thing people keep doing. But petitions are a begging instrument. We can't beg them for anything. The petition that the Barons Committee used against the monarch, the alleged monarch, was actually a demand not to ratify Article 60, the Nice Treaty. So petitions or going on the streets is no way to do it. We stay at home, we put pen to paper, and we use the postal service, and we don't have to go anywhere. And we don't get people coming to our doors, kicking them down. I mean, that's evidence fact now. So it's a simple, peaceful remedy.
Absolutely not. And I highly recommend it, David. So
thank you.
There are no problems. I've got no problems with that, because it fits. Everything fits with the way I was taught as a child and all throughout my teenage. Even though I'd forgotten a lot, and life takes its toll, and I've delved back into it in later life, because the world has certainly changed a lot, even in my time. Unbelievably, and this tyranny has, and it has been slowly, as I say, tried to catch a monkey from monarchy in the early interceptions of the EU from the 20s and the 30s. It's all out there. People want to do some research. It's plenty of. It's all on the internet if they want to look. So. But anyway, we'll wrap it up there, David. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and good luck with the group, and keep us informed, yeah?
I will do. Thank you very much for your time and helping. Bye now.
Cheerio.
Bye.